morning.
Good morning.
Alright, so this morning we're ready for the story of Judah and Tamar. We're kind of take a break from Joseph for a little bit. We're kind of in the part of Genesis where we're going to be hearing a lot about Joseph, but the Bible takes a break from Joseph for one chapter here, and it talks about Judah and Tamar. So who was Judah?
One of Jacob's sons.
One of Jacob's sons, you're right. Judah is also significant in another way. Why is that?
One of the tribes of Israel.
Yeah, there's another reason.
Is there another one?
No, the reason that Judah is significant is because Judah is the forefather of Jesus. Jesus came from the line of Judah, from Abraham and Jacob, but Judah, of the 12 brothers, Jesus came through Judah. Okay? That's why the Jews are called Jews. They're Judahites. Okay? The chapter 38, verse 1 says, "And it came about at that time that Judah departed from his brothers and visited a certain Adulamite, whose name was Hira. Yes. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua. And he took her and went into her. So she conceived and bore a son, and he named her He named him That's two letters, E-R, I don't know how else to pronounce it. Now, we're ready for verse 4, but I want to take just a minute.
Pause again?
No.
Oh, okay.
I want to point something out. I have relatives actually who will go in and read the story of Judah and Tamar, or Judah and Shua, and the story of Isaac and Rebekah, and Jacob and Rachel, and Jacob and Leah, and even Jacob's concubines, and they will say, well, see, we don't have to get married. They just went into them. That's how they got married. In other words, went in and slept with them. Regardless of what their process was then, okay? That's not our. It was still one man with one woman for life. That's how God meant it. Okay, Jesus says that in Matthew, that God meant for it to be one man with one woman for life, okay? And it's because of our fallenness, our sexual desires, that we want more than that. Okay, that any man wants more than that. Now, the other side that we need to understand is this. We are commanded in Romans 13, right, to obey the laws of the land. Okay? Now, I know they don't enforce it like they used to, but there used to be a law that said that you were supposed to get married, not just move in together. And I know that's not a law now so much, but I still believe that we are called to publicly say that and make a vow before God, and vow to stay with this one woman for life, as long as we both live, to love them. When we walk away from that, we only walk away from that because we are not able to forgive. Why, Logan? Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. The Bible makes it very plain it's meant to be one wife. And the thing of it is, if you really, a lot of these guys that say, well, I don't need a piece of paper. The biggest problem, the truth of it is they don't want to commit to something. They want to be able to walk away whenever they want to and be able to say, well, I was never married to her. So, alright, so verse 4. Then she conceived again and bore a son and named him Onan. And she bore still another son and named him Shelah. And it was at Chezib that she bore him. So, now we have to, in just those few verses, okay? In 3 verses, 20 years goes by. Look at verse 6. Now Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. Okay? So, he was born in verse 3, and verse 6, Judah took a wife for him. So Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. For Judah's firstborn, was evil in the sight of the Lord, so the Lord took his life. Okay? Don't think that God doesn't take people's lives, even today, who are evil. God still does that. Okay? Then Judah said to Onan, go into your brother's wife and perform your duty as a brother-in-law to her, and raise up offspring for your brother. So what was he supposed to do?
Give her a son.
Yes, give her a son.
To carry on Er's name.
Right, to carry on the first, and they might have had more later that would have been his, but the firstborn son that she had would have belonged to not to him. Would have carried Er's name, okay? And Onan knew that the offspring would not be his, so it came about that when he went into his brother's wife, he wasted his seed on the ground, in order not to give offspring to his brother. But what he did was displeasing in the sight of the Lord, so he took his life also. What was displeasing to him?
That he spilled his seed on the ground.
Yeah, that he decided that he would be in control. That he would be in control of whether she had an offspring or not, whether she had a baby or not. He went in and instead of letting God be in control of, and God said, okay, this is not, and people do it all the time, I know, and they don't die. We say, well, that's not true, but people do it all the time and they don't die. God makes examples of people sometimes. That doesn't mean he always gives everybody the justice they deserve, okay? But spilling your seed on the ground, God considers that sin because you're not trusting him, you're trusting self. Okay? It is God who opens the womb. It is God who decides if a woman gets pregnant. There is no woman that has ever gotten pregnant because she had sex. She only got pregnant because God caused her to get pregnant. Okay? Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up. For he thought, I am afraid that he too may die, like his brothers. So Tamar went and lived in her father's house. Now after a considerable time, Shua's daughter, the wife of Judah, died. And when the time of mourning was ended, Judah went up to his sheep shearers in Timnah, he and his friend Hira, the Adullamite. And it was told to Tamar, behold, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. So she removed her widow's garment and covered herself with a veil and wrapped herself, and sat in the gateway of Enan, which is on the road to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah had grown up and she had not been given to him as a wife. In other words, Sheila had grown up. He could be her husband and give her an offspring, right? But Judah hadn't given her a husband. Judah hadn't given Sheila to her. Then Judah saw her. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot, for she had covered her face. So he turned aside to her by the road and said, "Here now, let me come in to you." For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, "What will you give me, that you may come in to me?" He said, "Therefore I will send you a kid from the flock." She said, "Moreover, will you give a pledge until you send it?" And he said, "What pledge shall I give you?" And she said, "Your seal, and your cord, and your staff that are in your hand." Do you know what his seal was?
They sealed their letters with it.
It was a ring they wore, okay? And we sign our letters. What they did is when they wrote a letter, they closed it. They put a little wax on the closing of it, okay? And they took that letter and they stamped that wax, okay? The wax held the letter shut, and then they stamped that ring, that insignia or whatever, into it. This seal said this was from Judah, okay? And so she said, "Give me that, and you probably had more than one, but anyway." So he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. Okay? Then she rose and departed and removed her veil and put on her widow's garments. When Judah sent the kid by his friend the Dulamite to receive the pledge from the woman's hand, he did not find her. And he asked the men of the place, saying, "Where is the temple prostitute who was by the road at Enaim?" But they said, "There has been no temple prostitute here." So he returned to Judah and said, "I did not find her." And furthermore, the men of the place said, "There has been no temple prostitute here." Then Judah said, Let her keep them, lest we become a laughing stock. After all, I sent her this kid, but you did not find her. Now it was about 3 months later that Judah was informed, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the harlot, and behold, she is also with child by harlotry." Then Judah said, "Bring her out and let her be burned." Now I'll just be honest with you, I don't understand this. First of all, Tamar had a father. If my daughter was living in my house and some other father said, "Bring her out and burn her," I'd have a problem with that, okay? Even if she played the harlot, what about Judah? Is Judah any better? He was the one who suggested. Wasn't Judah playing the harlot? Bring her out and burn her. It was while she was being brought out that she sent to her father-in-law, saying, I am with child by the man to whom these things belong." And she said, "Please examine and see whose signet ring and cords and staff these are." And Judah recognized them and said, "She is more righteous than I, inasmuch as I did not give her to my son Sheila, and he did not have relations with her again. And it came about at the time she was giving birth, that behold, there were twins in her womb." Now, guys, know this. Judah and Tamar, Jesus comes from these offsprings. Okay? Moreover, it took place while she was giving birth. One put out a hand, and the midwife took and tied a scarlet thread on his hand, saying, This one came out first. But it came about, as he drew back his hand, that behold, his brother came out. Then she said, What? A breach have you made for yourself? So he was called Perez. And afterwards his brother came out, who had the scarlet thread on his hand, and he was named Zerah. Now, I don't remember exactly which one of those two was in the line of Jesus, but I do know that if you go read the genealogy in Matthew, you could find that out pretty quick. Okay? But now, I don't know what stands out to you in this story, but some things that stand out to me is that Judah was judging her, and he was as bad as she was. Was he any better? Not only did he judge her, but he denied her what he should have given her, his son. He denied her an offspring. Here we see we see a man trying to control things. Does that make sense? Judah was trying to control things, but God still. This was the line of Jesus. God had that all lined out exactly the way he was going to do it. Okay? Judah's sin was still held against Judah. Okay? But the fact that Tamar became pregnant, God still blessed that. Okay? My point here is God is still sovereignly in control. No matter what we do or what we think or what we try to cause to happen or try to make happen, or no matter what, God is still sovereignly in control of what goes on. No one can do anything. No demon, Satan, no one can do anything that God doesn't allow. Okay? I will give you an example. Let's say that a woman is being abused by her husband. This came to me the other day when I was talking to a lady, and I didn't know what to say to her exactly, but I was like, God, why would you allow that? And what went through my mind, I spent some time praying about the next night, and what I come to realize was she was still alive. God did not allow the man that was beating her to beat her to death. Does that make sense? He didn't allow to beat her to death. She was still alive. She still had her life. God was still sovereignly in control, would not let it go past whatever point he decided. Does that make sense? God is always in control of all things. No demon, no devil can do anything that God doesn't allow them to do. Okay. All right, any thoughts?
It was Perez that came from this.
Was it Perez? Perez was in the line of Jesus. Okay. So, the other thing I guess that stands out to me in that is, Judah tried to control, or actually Judah's son tried to control that this woman wouldn't have a baby, poured his seed on the ground. And God judged him for it. And God doesn't judge everybody every time they do things they shouldn't. Okay? But he does make examples of people sometimes to let us know it's not women don't get pregnant, and somebody can say, well, women sure don't get pregnant without having sex. Well, that's not true. One did once. Mary. And no woman has ever conceived a child because she was with a man. She conceived conceives a child because God causes her to conceive. Every single time. And for those that don't want to believe that, don't know God, don't know the Word. Okay? Alright. Any other thoughts? Alright, well, let's close in prayer and get our day started. Father God, thank you for this day, Lord. I thank you for your word. And I pray, Father, that you open our hearts and minds that we would truly come to know you, and we would truly long to know you. And Father, I thank you that you have revealed your word to us. Father, that you loved us enough to leave your word for us, that we can come to know you. Lord, I just ask that you be with us today. Help us to get the things done we need to do. Lord, be with Charlie at school. Take with mine. Lord, I pray that you would be with the members of this church, Lord, that you bind us together in unity, that you would open the hearts and minds to learn, to know your word, and that you would help us to truly long to know you, long to obey you, no other desire. Father, just forgive us where we've been.